Well, after a massive win for the Springboks over the Australians, they look towards part two, going head-to-head this weekend for the second match between the two sides. And in this video, we are going to be trying our best to predict who will be in the starting lineup and reserves for the Springboks team. But Tim, 33 points to 7 win over the Australians. Possibly a better start to the Rugby Championship than some would have anticipated. But overall, you've got to be pretty happy about how the Springboks played there.
Yeah, there's nothing more I can really say. That was like the perfect performance, really, from the Boks. I mean, getting 5 points, getting that bonus point is crucial in the long term when you think about this Rugby Championship. And yeah, it's just one of those games where the Boks just outclassed the Wallabies in that fixture, and hopefully they can do the same in this second test. But again, I do expect the Wallabies to have a bit more control within that second test. So you never know, maybe it's a closer game.
But of course, the All Blacks losing their first game up against Argentina, which brings that bonus point into play a little bit more as we head throughout the Rugby Championship competition. But looking through at your front row, Tim, who have you gone with for this matchup?
Well, I've been very, standard in terms of this front row. I've gone with the exact same front row that they selected, with Oxen Shea number 1, Bongi Manomi number 2, and Frans Malherbe at number 3. I just think it worked well. There was nothing wrong with it in terms of the scrums. You know, Oxen Shea and Frans Malherbe doing the business in terms of those scrum penalties. Again, a bit unfortunate, I'd say, for Bongi Manomi, because he didn't play a lot of minutes actually in that opening test. You know, he played, I think, only like 15 minutes to what I recall. So it's one of those where I think he's still available for selection, because it does seem like there's nothing wrong with him in terms of HIA or just anything of those sorts. So that's the reason why I have gone with him there. So yeah, let's see if it happens or not.
Right, so for myself, I have gone number 1, Oxen Shea. Number 2, this is actually where I've gone with Malcolm Marx. Mm-hmm. Now, Bongi Manomi, like you said, he came off the field extremely early, and it did seem like there was some sort of conversation going on between the referee and the medic. You have to wonder, if you're taking a player off that early, if it isn't tactically, you know, you're not giving him a huge amount of minutes whatsoever. Yeah. So I think there might have been something there. I don't think it was an HIA like you said, but either way, I'm erring on the slight ear of caution. So I've decided to put Malcolm Marx in at that starting lineup. Number 3, this is where I've gone with Frans Malherbe. I feel like he is a fantastic option for the Springboks. We saw some scrum dominance from start to finish throughout that match. And to be honest, I don't see the second match being any different. No Taniela Tupou for the Aussies. Definitely hurts their scrum. Isaac Kailea, you know, this was certainly a wake-up call for him in terms of this is international rugby now. And when you're going head-to-head with Frans Malherbe, normally you're walking backwards throughout those scrums as well. But number 4, this is where I have gone once again with Eben Etzebeth. I don't see any reason for them to change him out of the starting side for this contest. And then number 5, this is where I've decided to stick with what they went with in that first matchup and go with Peter Steph-Toy. I thought he had a sensational game from that number 5 jersey. The late change due to R.G. Snyman's injury, so it was a little bit of pressure, definitely because he possibly didn't anticipate playing at lock this early in the contest. I think later on, when Ben Jason Dixon was going to make his way onto the field, that's where we were going to see Peter Steph-Toy transition to lock. But from start to finish, just looked dominant. So that's a pretty formidable locking duo heading into the second test as well. And also, I should mention Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams, both out for the Australians with concussions, which means they're going to have a reshuffle at locking time, which is exactly why South Africa should go with the same two.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, really. Like, exactly for that reason, actually, in particular, around the Wallabies, because, yeah, with those two players kind of out, it just makes it much easier for the Springboks to make a decision just to keep the same pair. And that's exactly what I've done as well with Etzebeth as well as Peter Steph-Toy there. I just think it's the two you have to go with. And again, you know, I would like to see Ruhan Norte if he was available, but I believe he's still a bit injured. So that's the reason why I think both of us haven't really considered him. But yeah, no, pretty happy with that.
Alrighty, so now we move on to the loose forward trio. Now, this is also where we saw a little bit of a last-minute change with Ben Jason Dixon going into that number 7 jersey rather than making his way off the bench. For yourself, have you kept him as that number 7 for this matchup?
I have. I think he deserves it. I think when you look at the stats actually throughout the game, you know, he was pretty good actually in all of the stats actually when it came to tackling, when it came to ball carrying. You know, he did his job, and I believe he won 1 turnover if I'm not mistaken. But Yeah, he's definitely my number 7 for this game. For number 6, I have gone with Khaleesi. He did get that opening try, and a pretty good try, by the way. I mean, that was like a heck of a try to score for this first try of the Rugby Championship. I mean, like the lineup was incredible. So hoping we can see more of that throughout the rest of this competition. But yeah, so he's my number 6. Ben Jason Dix is number 7, and for number 8, I've actually gone with Quagga Smith. I've put him up into the starting lineup this time. I know he came off the bench for that previous game, but I feel low. Just for me personally, I don't think he did enough to I guess retain that kind of starting spot. I mean, again, he had a solid enough game, so it's not one I'm going to be. I guess I'm not going to mind if he continues in that starting position. I just think Quagga Smith is just he's just a great player to have, and someone who I personally want to see a lot more of. And I think Razzie may use him more in this game, so that's the reason why I've started him.
Okay, so we've just got one difference for us in that loose forward trio. You can probably guess what jersey it is, but number 6, I have gone with the captain, Siya Khaleesi. Yeah, very unique lineout, you could say, for that opening try. Siya Khaleesi, it looked like that was the game plan from start to finish in terms of the I don't even know what to call it. It was like a double, like a pass-off line-out rolling maul thing. I don't even know if they got an official name for it yet, but I'm sure they will after this. It's probably called something with the two towers. Okay, you got to be careful with that name, Tim. That's very close to something else. But
that's Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the Rings. Would you believe I'm from New Zealand? I've never seen it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's the reason why I'm saying it.
But yeah, so I would go with Siya Khaleesi as my number 6. Number 7, I have gone with Ben Jason Dixon. Like you said, he didn't really do too much wrong in that number 7 jersey. Got the opportunity, stepped up to the occasion, and now might get a few more minutes depending on the injury extents of some of the locks. For the Springboks, number 8, this is where I've gone with Eldrick Lowe, only because of what was said before this Rugby Championship and heading into these games up against Australia. They mentioned this is Lowe's opportunity to show what he can do in that number 8 jersey. So even if he didn't have the standout performance in that first match, I still think that they will want to give him another start, try and give him that chance to prove himself. And maybe it is just about getting some minutes under the belt for Eldrick Lowe here, plus Quagga Smith. I mean, that man, I don't know whether or not there's a player off the bench that brings more impact in World Rugby than Quagga Smith. At one stage, it was Malcolm Marx for the South Africans, but in terms of current players who make their way off the bench as a specialist replacement and can just change a game, like Quagga's your guy. So I feel like it doesn't really matter if he comes off the bench rather than starting, because he's probably still going to do the same thing as he would have if he was starting. Plus, if we see the early subs, then the Springboks, he probably still gets about 40 minutes for them in this game up against Australia. But now we move on to the backline. Number 9, this is where I have gone with Grant Williams. Number 10, Sasha Feinberg, Ngomezulu. Now, Cobus Reinach, he did have quite a tough game up against the Australians. He played extremely well. He took some massive shots. He got power bombed. He got hit in the ribs by his teammate, which I think was his hardest shot of the day. But at the end of it, he was still standing, or at least trying to stand before he was taken off the field for Grant Williams. But that is why I've gone with Grant Williams here. I think he took a lot less wear and tear from that first test match. And you're definitely in that scenario that you don't want to lose Reinach this early on with the extent of Faf de Klerk's injury. I'm still not sure when that man is back, to be honest. I don't know if you put him back in the starting side when he does return, because the Springboks on attack in this game, I thought, were just a little bit above what we have seen in terms of the games where you see Faf de Klerk starting. Reinach looked a lot more aggressive, a lot better with taking a snipe round the side of the breakdown. And then, I mean, what else can you say other than a phenomenal game for Sasha Feinberg, Ngomezulu? You wouldn't have thought it was his first start. You would have thought he had 50 caps under his belt. It's crazy. The other side of things, though, is maybe they look to rest him a little bit for this game, possibly have him come off the bench. We saw the Aussies have 3 injuries. The last thing you want is to lose that man for the rest of the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, look, this is the tricky spot, I think. In terms of the whole team, this is the most difficult position for me, because I also have gone with Grant Williams as a number 9. I think it's just for the same reasons you said, just, kind of just fresh kind of legs there. And just, I think Cobus Reinach just a bit of doubt. So that's the reason why I've started Grant Williams there, and he can definitely do the job. But that 10 jersey just, it's a tough decision. And I originally had Andre to start in this position, and I was actually considering Manny Libbok as well. I was considering him, but I have gone with Sasha. I have stuck with him here. I've gone with Sasha Feinberg in Gumazulu, and I just think, yeah, man, what a game! Like he really is a gem. He's just a gem of a player, and he is someone he's gonna get better. But that's the crazy thing about him. He's gonna get better and better, and I just don't know how the Boks are gonna go about it, because it's like, for the future, like, is he a 10 or a 15? Thinking, way ahead with Juanjo Pollard as well as Demi Williamson when he's back available. Like, that's a question they're gonna have to decide. But again, it's a good question. It's a good question to kind of ponder over. But I think the reason why I've started him as well is I'm also thinking him long term, because I kind of made the decision where if I started him within this game, I think it's more likely that they'll go with Pollard. I mean, I think Pollard's the better player to kind of face New Zealand than Sasha. I just think it's like Faf de Klerk. Like, I think Faf de Klerk is a better player for New Zealand than against Australia, because it's more like you're playing not more attacking sense. It's more like you want to pressure them, but you want to have the experience in that sense against the All Blacks. So I think in that scenario, I think that's where maybe Sasha comes off the bench. But for this case, I want to start him because he was just so good in that game against the Wallabies that he deserves another shot.
And I think something that was extremely impressive as well wasn't just his attack, but his defense throughout that game. He made a huge amount of tackles. Yeah. Including one on, like I said, Kobus Reinach. But he was one of those players that anytime there was almost a line break, he was right there to shut it down. And Australia, on another day, if those tackles had been missed, I know that Pollard's defence sometimes gets a little bit criticised. So if that was the case of Australia running through that gap, they are one of those sides that when they get to that line break situation, they normally end up scoring a try if they can get that support run right. But South Africa just stopped them right at the gate, right before they got going, and it showed by the scoreline, 33 points to 7, just the one try for the Australians. But now we move on to the centres, Tim. So for yourself, any surprising changes here? Have you tried to put a Lukhanyo arm in at 13? You're nodding. Is that because you have?
Well, I've definitely put Demi Jalende in because he was incredible in that game against the Boks. And again, he's another player that kind of put a serious tackle, I believe, on the Australians. I think it was Pasami he put the tackle on. But anyway, besides the point, he's just a battering ram in general. So he's definitely in the team to start. But with that 13, I have made the switch. I've taken Jesse Krill out for Lukhanyo Am, and it's a tough call because Jesse Krill again was pretty good in that game against the Wallabies. Like that what was it? The last try, I believe, in the game that he set up for Curly Lorenzo was like incredible. Like kind of on the wing, cuts himself back in, gets past a few players, finds a perfect pass towards Curly Lorenzo on the left. It's just what Jesse Krill does. This is why he's like one of the most improved players I think like in rugby. I think throughout the last 5 years, you can make the case. I think he's just been so good for the Boks. But I think I want to see Lukhanyo Am though. We just haven't seen much of him start. Again, we did see him within Portugal, but I want to see him back in the Rugby Championship. And I think what better time than this game against the Wallabies in the second test. So I want to see him, man. I want to see him.
For myself, I've got Damien Dialende as my number 12. Number 13, I have not got Lukhanyo Am. I have gone with, once again, Jesse Krill.
Outrageous.
I just don't know how you can take that man out. Like, I can understand it if they're trying to rotate the squad, but in terms of cohesion, it just seems to be that him and Dialende are just on the exact same page at the moment. And, it's a tricky one because, like you said, Lukhanyo Am, he's lacked minutes and he wants more of them, but with Jesse Krill playing the way that he is, it's very hard to take that man out of a starting side, possibly stop him from ending up with an injury. So you give him less minutes in this game and you have him fresh for New Zealand. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what direction they take in that 13 jersey, because then you have to ask yourself the question here, if Lukhanyo Am has an absolute blinder in this game, does he then somehow start up against New Zealand in that first test match?
Just to answer that question, if that were to happen, I would, because it comes back towards that scenario like where I think Lukhanyo is a better player against the ABs. It's like he's suited to play against the ABs than I believe Jesse Krill. Maybe that's a bold claim. Maybe out of all the players listed with Faf and Pollard, because I think that's kind of set. I think it's kind of safe to say those two are more suited against the ABs. But Krill though is he's just so good. You can play any team through all these guys. He's up there in one of the best. I mean, you could say he's probably the best 13 in the world. So it's hard to not say he can play against the ABs. But I just love Lukhanyo Am. And he's done the business time and time again in the past against the All Blacks. So he's definitely. He definitely has the capability of doing it. It's just more, does he have the game time? Like, one game. Do you think that's enough to put him straight into a game against the All Blacks? it's a tough call. So, but if he were to have a good game, then you never know. You never know.
And you have mentioned how they're more suited to play the All Blacks, although a little bit of a question there is, are the All Blacks playing the same way that they were the last time that those men were playing them? We've seen a lot of changes in just a short amount of time, some very much for the worse, but that, of course, is with the development of a new coach, a new squad getting together. But is it still going to be tactically the same as what we saw in that World Cup final, or are we going to get to see maybe those young players with their style of rugby for the South Africans, such as a Grant Williams, a Feinberg, Ngome Zulu, and will that be the way that they break down this AB side? We've said AB's far too much over the last 3 minutes, by the way.
I think like the only thing I can answer to that is that going off that game we saw against Argentina, like I think for the very first time ever, I've had a bit of doubt over Jordie Barrett. That's the first time ever. But it's normally like the third team we look at that is like kind of changing in and out, and it's with Jordie Barrett. But for the first time ever, I think there's a bit of doubt over Jordie Barrett. So you never know. There could be a case where we don't even have the two players that played against the All Blacks in that final. So it's we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But for now, I think I'm sticking to Dimian Delende and the Kanyo app.
So now we move on to the back three. Question is, are you sticking with those exact same players? We will find out soon, but it's my turn to go first. I've just realised. So, number 11.
A long time in that we never even said it.
The left wing in this contest, I have gone with Kurtley Arendse. Makazole Mapimpi, he will want to play this game because he is a little bit of a, I don't know if you call it a rivalry, but there's a bit of bad blood that took place up against the Australians not too long ago. But there is a chance that he may not even get any minutes throughout this 2 legs of the Rugby Championship because of how well Kurtley Arendse is playing at the moment. Number 14, this is where I've gone with Cheslin Colby. He had some good moments up against Australia, but I would say he was probably one of the backs that I saw the least throughout that contest.
I agree.
I think every time that I was like, oh, Cheslin's got it, I went, hang on, that's an 11. That's exactly Kurtley Arendse.
Exactly what I was going to say, yeah. I think when Kurtley scored the first try, I actually thought it was Cheslin Colby. I mean, like, honestly, I thought like just, Cheslin scored. No, wait, it's Kurtley Lorenzo. Like, but no, I think there's only like one moment in the game where they did a cross kick to Cheslin, but it just never worked out. But yeah, you're right on that front.
And he's one of those players that when he is heavily involved, of course, he can be extremely strong. So maybe in this game we see Makazole Mapimpi on the left wing and then they put Kurtley Arendse to the right. But I've just decided to stick it as the same, seeing as the rest of my backline, with the exception of the 9, is pretty similar until we get to this number 15 jersey. I have taken Willie Leroux out. That man, of course, he is an experienced veteran of the Springbok side. He wasn't very reliable when it came to passing the ball in that line break, was he? But that was a weird moment, wasn't it? Because like you said just before we started recording, he's normally known as that guy who would get that try assist in that scenario.
Exactly. He's known more for passing the ball than actually going for it. So, it's just... it's one of those few moments where he just made the wrong, decision there. But I guess to be fair to him, maybe the player that a lot of people saw on his right-hand side wasn't, in his angle to kind of pass that ball. But it's just one of those where you look back, it's just a decision which didn't go against the Springboks, of course, because later on, I think a few phases later they scored a try. But still, it's a moment to look back on.
Yeah, I've decided to take him out, which I think is a pretty bold call. That's also because I do think he will be starting up against New Zealand, though, so I don't think there's much point risking him in this game if you can manage to avoid it. Plus, I do want to see this man at number 15 up against the Australians, and that is Apalele Fassi. Now, under the high ball, if Australia play like they did in that first match, we're going to see a lot of kicks, mainly from Noah Lolesio. But someone who did extremely well under the high ball in their last Springbok game was Apalele Fassi. Definitely up against the Welsh in that game. He was just all over it. Any chance that he had, he was able to take that catch. And he is one of those players that a lot of people are calling him maybe that future 15. Sasha Feinberg also falls into that category at the moment. So they've got a lot of options. Damien Valimza, he's going to return and people think he's going to go 15. But I'm going to give Apalele Fassi a crack here. At least that is what I think they might do, just to add a little bit of rotation. Of course, that will mean there's a lot less chat going on in terms of that Springboks backline, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think at the moment they've got it relatively under control, so give up a Lele Fasi that shot at 15.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot, actually. Just it's a good switch, I think. I just feel bad for him. There's just so many good players in that 15 spot that you'd assume Fasi just gets it because he's such a good player. But yeah, jeez,
Do you think as soon as Willemse returns, Fasi goes down another rank in terms of that 15 chance?
Yeah, I mean that's an obvious. I think Williams is just he's a world class player. Like it's so crazy to say that. Like it's like he's so young as well for his age, and he's
you've done it again, Tim. You've said he's so young for his age. I saw you said that on one of your videos, and you got a bit of stick for it. But...
No, he's just it is just crazy. Like, how old is he now? He's like 25, or is he? If you take a guess right now, like what I'm looking this up, like, what do you say?
I think 24 or 25. I think he's just older than me.
He's 26 now. He's 26.
He must have had a birthday.
That's still impressive. Like he can play 2 more World Cups. Like it's mad. It's mad. But no, I do think with Fasi it's a good selection. But for my case, I've made 2 changes to you in these positions. I have gone with Makazole Mapimpi as number 11 here. I just think he deserves the shot. I think, like I talked about before, he's impressed within the previous games he's played. And I just think, it's one of those games where I would like to see him play against the Wallabies as well, because I also think from a Wallabies standpoint, I would not be surprised if they also select Marika Corbetti to start in the second fixture, because he wasn't even included in that first test. So I wouldn't be surprised if he starts for the Wallabies. And hey, there's that battle that kind of resurfaces there. So I would like to see Mapimpi in. And then, yeah, of course, in that case, I have then moved over Curly Lorenza towards that 14 spot, which he can definitely do the job there. He got 2 tries off the back already in the opening test, and I definitely think he can add a lot more. So I'm putting him there at number 14. And then, yeah, for the 15, I have kept with Willie LaRue. I just think it's one of those where it's the safe option, and I think it's what Razzie will probably do. Again, I would not be surprised. I think that the other consideration I had was actually moving Sasha down towards the 15 and then moving either Manny or Andre into the 10. But I don't know if they'll do that or not. But for now, I have just stuck with Willie LaRue as the safe option there.
And he certainly offers you a lot when it comes to just being at the back. That return kick I thought was very strong. Yeah. Normally, Tom Wright is known for his kicking. In fact, he nailed one that went just outside of the Springboks 22. But, Willie LaRue just looked like he was calm at the back, waiting for what was the eventual kick to come from the Australians. Like we said, there were so many of them. And he looked very good on attack as well, Willie LaRue. I found that he was about that second or third receiver, and a lot of the times he was shifting the ball straight into that gap for the next player to go on.
That's always what he's done. It's the pivot right there.
The pivot, eh?
Yeah,
that's a nickname and a half, isn't it? I don't think anyone's got that nickname, do they?
No. It's just that he acts as the pivot player in terms of the attacking line. That's kind of what he's always been. I guess is his job in that way. But I do want to ask you a question though. Do you think from a Wallaby standpoint they'll make a switch in terms of that 10 jersey? Do you think they'll put Ben Donaldson in? Because it's a different way in how the Wallabies will kind of go about the game. I think if they were to switch to him, then no Laseo. Like, do you think they'll make that switch or not?
Honestly, I think they're in a little bit of trouble at the moment, the Australians, in terms of the 10. Like, I don't think you can go with Noel Alessio, though, because unless you're going to tell him, look, mate, if we're having 75% territory against us, let's not do an up and under from our 22 that goes to 25 metres out from our line. You've got to clear that ball downfield. And yes, the Springboks were running it back, but you've got to give yourself a bit of a chance, There was one of those aimless kicks that went straight up, straight down, and then the Springboks scored.
Exactly.
And you're in that scenario of, maybe don't do that again, because that was a bit too easy. But
you just give up possession right off the back in that play.
Yeah, I don't know what they can do, really. Like, honestly, there's so much that needs to happen in just 1 week, whereas the South Africans, there is a chance that they could breeze this game again up against the Australians. Losing Filipa Dangunu due to an injury, I think that gets worse for the Aussies.
That's a tough
because he was one of the backs that actually looked like he had some sort of intent about him.
That's why I want Marika in there. Like, it's a easy switching right there.
Although, how ready is he going to be? This will be his first game since playing in Japan, won't it? So that's a little while since he's been getting some minutes. Yeah, you're used to it with the Springboks, aren't you?
At the end of the day, you can make the case. He's probably the only world-class player they have from a position standpoint, he's like the one I can only think of like right off the back. Like I would put him in like the top 5 of like players. I could put him as like top 5 in terms of their 11 spot, I think, in the world.
As long as he remembers to pivot and duck a little bit further down for his tackling.
Exactly.
That's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah. I forgot about that.
But nonetheless, we are up to the benches for this matchup. 6-2 split, I assume, is once again what we have gone with.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Have to.
We can actually say in this scenario is what the doctor ordered, because Rassi Erasmus, of course, is actually Dr. Rassi, isn't it?
Indeed.
So that works nicely. But number 16 for yourself. Have you got Malcolm Marx? I assume you have if you've got Bongi in your starting side.
Yeah. I've gone with Malcolm Marx at number 16. I just think you got to. I mean, I was actually considering Grubbelow there, but it's just one of those where with Malcolm Marx, like you can't really take him out. And again, I just want to see more of him play because we didn't kind of get to see a lot of him back in the World Cup and that. So I want him to kind of get back to the player he used to be. So and he definitely is going to be able to do that. So yeah, I put him off the bench, and then the replacement props there. I've actually gone with Thomas Dutoy as the loose head, and then for the tight head, I've gone with Vincent Cox. So those are the 2 off the bench there.
Alrighty, so for me, I have gone with Johan Krubler as my number 16.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's ever a time to give him minutes, it would be after you've beaten a side by 26 points the week prior.
Yeah.
Of course, if Bongi Umanumbi is injured, that makes it a lot easier, and I'd assume for yourself then you would make that switch as well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Johan Krubler, he's not a bad option for them. Definitely if they're trying a few, not shenanigans, but little set pieces and whatnot at the line-out. I feel like he'll quite enjoy that, being from the Vodacom Bulls, who often do love a rolling maul of their own. Gerhard Stennekamp, I have kept at number 17, and then number 18, this is where I've also gone with Vincent Koch. But in my next 3 forward replacements, number 19, Salman Morat, number 20, Marco van Staden, and number 21, Mr. Impact himself, Quagga Smith. Same as what they had last week. They definitely don't want another locking injury, though. I'll say that right now. I mean, Morat, don't get me wrong, he's all right. But I feel like if they lose one more lock out of Eben Etzebeth and Peter Steptoe, there's a little bit of trouble that's starting to form there in the lock and duo. Yeah.
No, I'm trying to think of like locks who aren't part of the squad at the moment that could come in if we need it, if that were to happen. Like we have
I think there was rumours, I'm just gonna quickly check. I think maybe Jansi van Rensburg.
Really?
Possibly. Is that who they've said there? Montpellier Star?
Okay.
Who's capable of blindside flank.
Is Klein not available still? Is he?
They've got Ruben van Heerden. They've got Jean Klein, if he is match fit, and then also Jason Jenkins as the other guy that they could look to. So they've got a few options.
That's probably the one I would do. If I had to bring someone out, I'd probably do Jason Jenkins, But look, besides the point, I've gone with the same 2 as you there. The only switch I've made is obviously I put him low ahead of Quagga in that position. So, pretty standard thing for off the bench there.
So now only 2 positions remaining for the Springboks here, 22 and 23. Now, I assume you've left Reinach out completely.
Indeed, I have.
That only leaves you one option as your number 22. So I guess the big question mark is 23.
Yeah, so I've gone with Monet Vandenberg, just to be clear. I have gone with him off the bench. I think it'll be good for him, actually. I think this is a good game, kind of get some minutes in. And again, he's versatile in the sense where he can cover 2 positions at least. So I like that as well. But for 23, I've actually gone with Andre Pollard here. I've gone with him again as number 23. And it's one where I never really thought I would do it. But because I originally actually had Sasha as, off the bench and then Pollard to start. But I made the switch because, Andre, when you think about it, he can cover that center spot. We can cover the 15 if needed. So in a way, he can kind of act as the next like Franz Stein in that position. So I want to see it kind of happen. So Andre Pollard off as my number 23.
For myself, 22, Monet Vandenberg. Number 23, Andre Pollard as well. I feel
like
there you go. That's probably the combination, unless they want to look at maybe putting someone, in your case, maybe a Jesse Creel, maybe at 23, or could maybe look at Lukanyo Arm, giving him some minutes off the bench in this game, in my case, rather than Andre Pollard. It's just that big question of Cheslin Colby, really, because he's your backup kicker, isn't he? Theoretically, if anything happens for Sasha, Feinberg, Ngume Zulu in that starting lineup. For myself, anyway.
I personally would have, if I'd have someone to kick, that's a tough one. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Oxton Che go for it. I wouldn't mind seeing him go for the
I
kicks.
felt like there was something like
Yeah.
that coming, and I was waiting to see which player you were going to give it to.
I was actually just looking at all of them. I was like, okay, who would be the awesome? Like, who would be awesome to see just go for a kick? I'd say Oxton Che.
I'm pretty disappointed you didn't go with Quagga Smith, though. I feel like that was the obvious choice that everyone was thinking.
I think he's more like he'd be more used to it really with his sevens background as well. He can kick a I think that he'd be okay with that. But I would love to see Oxton Che just step up and just be like just boot it. But no, I have gone with the same bench as you there.
That's fair enough, yeah. But nonetheless, I guess thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let us know your Erasmus predictions in the comments down below as well. The team will be announced, I believe, tomorrow when this video does come out. Yeah. So be sure to keep an eye out for that as well. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. Be sure to check out Rugbyitch's YouTube channel. The link will be in the comments as well as the description. We will see you all for the next one.